Mayor Whipple, first of all, are you related to Tom and Vicki Whipple?
Yes.
And how are you related to them?
Well, the easiest way to say it is that Tom's dad and my dad are first cousins.
Okay.
So I guess I'm either a second cousin or fourth cousin or third
Or
cousin.
you might be a first cousin twice removed.
I don't know what it means. Yes.
Your cousins most likely though, right?
Correct.
And it's my understanding that you pretty much on your own prepared these revisions, these proposed changes to the ordinance. Is that correct?
Take all the blame.
Okay. As you pointed out, some are just grammatical changes that you made. There are a number of what I would call procedural changes that are made, and then there are what I would call substantive changes that are made, which you referred to. And those substantive changes, as you went through them, in 2.1025, parens 5, we add the word comment, and comments, the words and comments, to conduct. And then under 104H, let me get to that here. You're adding paragraph 2 with regard to threats that you spoke about, and then you're adding what currently is I1 and then J and K.
Correct.
Would you agree with me that those are pretty much the substantive changes that are being made, that you're proposing to be made to the ordinance? Or are there any what you would consider substantive changes other than those that I just mentioned? There are some significant procedural changes later on, but I don't know that there's anything that really speaks to the substance. And I guess when I say substance, what I'm really talking about is prohibited conduct.
I would agree with that, and I would agree with the way you put it. Substantial changes, I mean, they're all kind of substantial, but substantive changes, these are that, and then there are procedural changes, and then there are grammatical and clerical changes.
Okay. Now, as far as those procedural changes that I mentioned, it appears that in 2.106G parens 2, and again, it's kind of hard to,
I get it.
G parens 2, you appear to make the determination of whether or not an investigation should be conducted discretionary, because you say we make a determination as to whether or not an investigation is warranted. So we first of all then, before we were the ordinance currently requires that we perform an investigation. There's no discretion, but it appears now that the change would make that determination as to whether or not we should have an investigation discretionary.
I guess no, I wouldn't say it's discretionary, because if it's warranted, you have to do it. Because the next section says that. Upon determination that one is warranted, you have to investigate it. So warranted, if there's a better way, if you have a better way to put it, I'd be happy to entertain that, but I wouldn't call it discretionary. It's saying that you get to, because see, currently, your investigation includes an analysis of, does this even violate the ordinance?
Well,
and I'm splitting that up. I'm saying before you even investigate, the board should decide, does this even violate the ordinance? And at any level, I mean, at any possible scenario, is it warranted? I think that's the right word, but if you've got a better word, I'm open.
So, if we determine that, by way of example, if we determine that the complaint that is submitted to us does indeed complain that the city official violated the ordinance in that they did something that was otherwise prohibited by the ordinance, then.
Or could have been, because you've got to do an investigation yet, right? It's kind of a preponderance of evidence
But I'm
thing.
just talking about the complaint itself. When
Okay.
we review the complaint on its face.
Yep.
We have to make a determination according to you whether or not, based upon that complaint on its face, whether or not an investigation is warranted.
Correct.
And if I hear you correctly, you're saying that an investigation will be warranted and that you will then be compelled, if you will, to conduct an investigation if it makes referral to some sort of prohibited conduct. At that point, it should be obvious, I guess, that an investigation is warranted, and we should go forward with an investigation. Correct?
I think so. You said prohibited conduct. This talks about under any relevant provisions. And there is a section called prohibited conduct. So are you suggesting that it should specifically reference prohibited conduct versus relevant provisions?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
I don't mean to, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out, you see, the ordinance right now says that we should investigate it. Now, in the past, when we've had complaints, the most recent complaint and then the one I referenced earlier that you're very familiar with,
Yes.
we decided this is bullshit, this is not within our jurisdiction, and we've dismissed them. And we didn't even investigate them. We didn't pursue an investigation because, at least, I don't know, I was not available when this most recent matter came before the board. But we make a determination that, and the word jurisdiction is not used anywhere in the ordinance, but we've used that term before to say that it's not within our jurisdiction because the conduct as alleged in the complaint is not the prohibited conduct.
Correct.
And so I guess the thing I'm trying to get in my mind is that if the complaint comes before us and clearly makes reference to prohibited conduct, an investigation is warranted and we are then compelled to do the investigation. If we determine that the complaint does not include any sort of prohibited conduct, then an investigation is not warranted.
Right, and
Would that
that's
be
one
fair?
of your allowed actions, to deem no action is necessary on a complaint.
Okay.
That was one of your allowed 5 actions as a board.
The next thing is in 106.3.1, I believe it is. And again, give me a moment to find that. The numbers aren't on the, we got it, 106, okay, 106. What I'm referring to, 106.3.1, it's where you indicate that when the city official is notified of the complaint, currently they're advised of the identity of the complainant. But as you currently have it, I believe we no longer, the clerk will not tell the city official the identity of the complainant. Is that correct?
I'm anticipating the way that's handled, and if you want it more clear, I can, but once this document comes to you, it is a FOIA-able public document, so the complainant's name should be on it. So it should automatically become public. The way this is set up is that once you receive the complaint, it is a 100% public document, no restrictions on its dissemination, and the complainant's name must be on it. I'm assuming one thing that the clerk shouldn't even do is accept one if it's not signed.
Okay. It's actually at the bottom. It's at the very bottom of the page that talks about complaints. And again, it's difficult for me to read this.
The numbering with the strikeouts and whatnot, it gets a little crazy in this section because some of these subsections are combined together, so
Well,
But I understand what you're saying. You're saying prior to the beginning of any significant action, you've got to notify the city official who's the subject of the complaint. That section, correct?
That's correct, and then it has of the nature of the complaint and the identity of the person or entity filing the complaint, which is struck. So it seems to me that seems to indicate that at that point, you're not informing the city official of the identity of the complainant.
Correct.
So
I'm assuming what you do is send them a copy of the complaint and they'll have it.
Okay, but
That's the best way to notify them. Hey, we got this complaint. Here you go.
But don't we want to let them know who the identity of the complainant is?
I just took it out as not a primary thing. You have to, it's a public document. You can't disclose it or keep it closed. It has to be given out to anybody, not just the complainant or the complained about party.
Well, why is then the identity of the person or entity filing the complaint, why is that struck through then?
Because I did not, as a procedural matter, want that to be the focus of that process. The process is you're notifying the person who's being complained about that they've been complained about. Here's the complaint. You're not in the business of saying, oh, by the way, this person did it.
Well, why not? I mean, that's
why would you? Why do you need to? Why do you need to identify?
Because I think you need to know who your accusers are.
No, but it's on the form. It has. They will know.
Well,
they will know.
Okay, so it is disclosed to them then.
Yes, it is, but not directly by the board as a formal act.
Okay.
That's the difference.
Okay.
It is. It's completely public knowledge or information. So.
Okay. So the city official is going to know who the complainant is.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's nothing in here that allows you to not tell them. You have to give them the complaint. You have to. And maybe we'll just say it more clearly that they should be given a copy of the complaint. I can do that too.
I have several more questions. Would it be fair to say that these changes that you're proposing came about as a result of the dismissal of the complaint that was filed by the Whipples because it was determined that, for lack of a better word, we didn't have jurisdiction? That's why we're doing this, right?
No.
Why are we doing it then?
I mean, the events that went into that case played into it, but this comes from past situations and discussions about process and whatnot, just in general on how to deal with the ethics stuff.
So we would be here tonight even if that complaint had never been filed?
I don't know if that's, well, maybe not tonight, but yes, eventually you would. I've been talking to the city manager about changing this ordinance for several years. So it's just, you know, it got to the top of the heap in my queue to where I could spend several hours trying to sort all this out and come up with something to get us going and talking about it. And that's really the genesis of this.
Well, let me ask you this then. Do you believe under the proposed ordinance with the proposed changes that you've made, and again, I'm using this term even though it's not used in the statute, but are you saying that we would have then had jurisdiction under the complaint that was most recently filed? Do you believe that we would have jurisdiction if the statute, or excuse me, if the ordinance was as you now propose?
Well, I will answer that, but I'm gonna couch this. I've not seen the complaint. I've not seen the complaint, and I've not seen your investigative report. All I know is third hand what it was, and my answer is no. I don't think that anything would have changed on that case with this new ordinance.
So even with the changes that you're proposing, you don't believe that our decision on that complaint would have changed, that we still would have dismissed it?
I think that in the end, yes. You might have done it through a different process because the process is slightly different, but yes, in the end, I believe you might have. I can't say you would have, I'd say you might have. I think you could have. I would have probably started there unless somebody could convince me otherwise.
Okay.
But so, again, this is only based on what I know, which is I have not seen a complaint.
Well, here, that confuses me, because the changes that you're proposing, it's pretty clear, first of all, that you've added the term comments, not just conduct, but comments, and then a city official should not publicly make any statement regarding the city council, a council member, or a city board or commission, a city board or commission member, or a city employee which is inaccurate when said official knew or should have known such statement was inaccurate.
But that's struck out. That is not in the draft that you are looking at. That is, if you look, those words are all struck out. That section literally reads now, a city official should not inaccurately present or describe any city report, document, or information, period.
Well,
So
gosh,
when
I'm
I
sorry,
put it
then
before
what
the-
I've got,
Yeah, it's not what we were provided.
yeah, that's not what I've got in front of me at all.
Yeah, well, this comes from us trying to track multiple levels of changes.
Because it seems to me.
I don't know how that happened, because unless it was when I printed it from Word, because I'm looking at the Word document of that, and it clearly shows it struck out. When I made it a PDF, maybe something got lost in that.
Well,
But I can assure you, it stops at the word information.
well, the thing is that the allegations that were made in the complaint most recently, that the changes that you are proposing that I just referred to seem to clearly target those kinds of comments, those kinds of things that were said, and is being proposed so that if comments of that sort are made in the future, that it could indeed be considered prohibited conduct and could indeed warrant an investigation, and if a complaint is filed.
But again, it's not part of what this council will see at the second reading. In fact, here's how I would explain it. It's my understanding that the complaint you got in a nutshell was that Councilmember Vogel had called the city racist or bigoted, and that wasn't true. I don't believe that that's a statement that can possibly be determined in fact. You can't, that's an opinion.
Well,
purely.
exactly, thank
So-
you very much.
so
I
that's
agree
why-
with that completely.
So that's